There are crimes of greed, crimes of desperation, and then there are crimes of inconvenience, where love steps between logic and tradition. In this case, appearances deceived nearly everyone. A missing bride, a rattled groom, and beneath it all, a truth so simple, it nearly escaped detection entirely. Tonight's investigation? The adventure of the Noble Bachelor. Of all the dramas Holmes and I witnessed in our shared years at Baker Street, few carried quite the sting of this one. No dead bodies, no clashing villains, just a missing bride, a noble groom, and the thin veneer of British tradition cracking under its own weight. At the time, I was nursing both a bullet in my leg and the slow preparation for my own wedding. The rain had settled in early, dull and insistent, and I'd burrowed into a cloud of newspapers surrounded by royal scandals, banking failures, and gossip columns that had more fiction than our own cases. Holmes walked in from an afternoon stroll, rain trailing behind him and a letter waiting on the table, marked with a crest and a monogram large enough to require its own postage. "Here's a fashionable missive," I said, nodding toward it. "Bit of a leap from tide waiters and fashion mongers." Holmes smiled. "Yes, my usual admirers do prefer haddock and smugglers to noble ink and gilt." He cracked the seal, skimmed the contents, and paused. "Oh, this might prove more interesting than I thought." "Not a party invitation, then?" "No, this is distinctly professional." "From one of the upper crust?" "One of the highest in England." I leaned forward. "Then congratulations." He waved the compliment aside. "The stature of a client means little. It's the case that must warrant attention, and this one may have teeth." He handed me the letter. I read it aloud. "My dear Sherlock Holmes, Lord Backwater tells me I may rely fully on your judgment and discretion. I intend to visit you this afternoon concerning a painful incident related to my wedding. Mr. Lestrade is involved already and welcomes your cooperation. I shall call at 4 o'clock. Yours faithfully, Robert St. Simon." "Well then, you've got just under an hour." "Enough time to dig into the details," Holmes replied. "You've been following the papers." "My leg made sure of that." "Good. Then post me up. I only skim the agony column and criminal notes. You know I have no patience for society gossip unless it's knotted in crime." I pulled the relevant articles and recited the preamble. The wedding of Lord Robert St. Simon, second son to the Duke of Balmoral, and Miss Haydee Dorn of San Francisco, a union whispered to be more financial than romantic. Holmes paced. "A noble line, but not a wealthy one. The Balmoral fortunes have faded. Her father's gold rush earnings likely offset that imbalance." "And yet the bride vanished," I said. "Not during the honeymoon, at the breakfast table." Holmes stopped. "Now, that's rare. Tell me more." Holmes leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Eyes narrowed at the newspaper clippings now spread across the table. "Curious," he murmured. "What is?" I asked. "The sequence, the tone, the precision of chaos." He tapped the wedding notice with one finger. "We're being invited into a scandal, but not the kind newspapers enjoy." I watched him mentally sort through names, motives, and titles in silence. He always did this before a client arrived, not just preparing deductions, but framing how to dismantle the ego they inevitably brought. "This case has less to do with mystery," Holmes muttered, "and more to do with pride." There was a pause as he read the letter again, glancing at the crest smeared faintly with ink. "An aristocrat with a grudge?" I said. "Perhaps," Holmes replied. "Or a man still adjusting to being the victim rather than the authority." Just then, the doorbell rang. A deliberate, punctual chime that announced status before conversation. Holmes stood. "And there he is." He crossed to the fireplace, adjusted the violin slightly, then took his place beside me with composed alertness. "Remember," he whispered as footsteps rose on the stairs, "we are not solving for crime, we are solving for comfort." The door opened with a kind of ceremonial finality, as if even the hinges understood the weight of the title behind it. "Lord Robert St. Simon," our page boy announced. The man who entered was sculpted from centuries of English custom, high-nosed, pale, careful in posture, and dressed like a photograph. Black frock coat, ivory waistcoat, yellow gloves. His gait was calculated, his expression hinted at injury masked by impeccable manners. He turned his head slowly, scanned the room, then nodded in practiced courtesy. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson." Holmes bowed. "Please, take the basket chair. You'll find it more forgiving than most titles." The nobleman sat, crossed his legs with stiff precision, and began. "My situation is profoundly humiliating." Holmes leaned in with attentiveness, not sympathy. "I understand there has been a disappearance, but not yet a crime." "That is precisely the question. My bride, my wife, left without warning, without farewell." "Let's set the record. You met Miss Haiti Doran in San Francisco?" "Yes, her father is a mining magnate. She was charming, spirited, more nature than polish, but I found that invigorating." "And you proposed marriage?" "Upon her arrival in London, the union was agreed, the dowry arranged, the ceremony discreet." "Why discreet?" Lord St. Simon hesitated. "There were former acquaintances, Miss Flora Miller among them, passionate, unstable. I feared a public scene." Holmes scribbled notes. "Let's talk temperament. How was Miss Doran the morning of the wedding?" "Radiant," he said quickly. "Enthusiastic about our future." "And afterward?" "The shift came in the vestry. She dropped her bouquet. Accidentally, I assumed. A man in the pew handed it back. She looked rattled. Agitated, though she brushed it off." "Did you know the man?" "Certainly not. Dressed plainly. Didn't belong." "And after the reception?" "She spoke briefly with her maid, Alice, also American, then sat at the table. 10 minutes in, she excused herself and vanished." "No message?" "None. Her father and I searched the house. A footman recalled seeing a cloaked woman leave. Then word reached us. She was seen walking in Hyde Park with Miss Miller." Holmes paused. "You were aware Flora Miller was emotionally attached to you?" "Perhaps overly so." "Enough to threaten your bride?" "She attempted entry early that day. She was removed forcibly." Holmes tilted his head. "Do you suspect Flora seduced Haiti into betrayal, into flight?" "I suspect she conspired. Haiti may have been naive or compromised emotionally. I can't judge." "Fair. But allow me to ask, how did Miss Doran speak of commitment, of loyalty?" "She seemed decisive," he said, adjusting his cuff. "But impetuous, not given to reflection." "And your theory?" Lord St. Simon shifted in the chair. "She suffered a lapse, emotional, nervous, perhaps even a temporary madness." Holmes gave the faintest smile. "Uncommon, but convenient." "She abandoned title, stability, a future carved in granite," St. Simon said, voice rising. "How else should I explain such recklessness?" Holmes flipped through the notes. "You mentioned she spoke of jumping a claim." "Yes. Slang from her youth, I suppose. An odd expression, certainly." Holmes nodded slowly. "And do you believe she would act dishonorably?" he asked. The nobleman stood. "I believe she has acted, Mr. Holmes. Whether from confusion or deception, I am no longer inclined to speculate." He collected his gloves and eyeglass cord. "I await your conclusion." Holmes remained seated. "You already have them," he said. St. Simon froze. "You've solved it?" "I've understood it. The rest is timing." "Then I'll take my leave," Lord St. Simon said stiffly. "Though I fear you underestimate the gravity of what's been done." Holmes bowed his head. "I believe we both understand it fully, but from different ends of the matter." The door closed with a whisper, and Holmes exhaled sharply. "Well, not every mystery begins with tragedy, Watson. Sometimes it just begins with unfortunate timing." After the door closed behind Lord St. Simon, Holmes didn't speak. He stood still for a moment, one hand resting on the mantel, the other flicking lightly across his notebook. Not writing, just listening to the echoes of the conversation that had passed. "He's asking the wrong questions," Holmes finally said. "But that's common when pride does the asking." I remained quiet. The air felt heavy, not with crime, but with consequence. A wedding undone is no less a wound than a window shattered. She saw him in the pew, Holmes continued. Alive, unexpected. Everything changed in that moment. The plain-looking man from San Francisco? Holmes nodded slowly. She had no time for clarity, no room for ceremony, so she made a decision. He paused. And it was the correct one. I could see the conviction settled behind Holmes's eyes. He wasn't judging Haiti for her actions. He was almost admiring her ability to choose heart over hierarchy with such certainty. It was rare for Holmes to speak with warmth about a subject outside the scope of a cold deduction. She dropped the bouquet as an excuse to retrieve his note, Holmes said. Retreated upstairs, gathered her things with the help of a maid. Someone loyal enough not to question, and left. And you believe she returned to this man willingly? I believe she returned to someone who never stopped waiting, Holmes replied. Whether a lover or a husband, we'll confirm shortly. He moved toward the dining table and began adjusting the cutlery with surprising care. I've asked Lord St. Simon to return tonight. I've sent quiet word to others as well. I blinked at the spread. Pâté, pheasant, woodcock, aged wine, more suited to a country estate than our Baker Street supper table. You're staging a reconciliation. Holmes glanced at me, one brow raised, a rare softness in his tone. No, Watson, I'm staging the truth. A second knock echoed down the hallway, this one sharp, hurried, less decorum and more indignation. Holmes didn't flinch. Let him in, Watson. I opened the door, and Lestrade stepped across the threshold with urgency soaking through his coat and cuffs. He looked like a fisherman who'd caught frustration instead of trout. Evening, he muttered, stomping water from his boots. Got something. Holmes motioned to the hearth. There's whiskey. Use it. Lestrade dropped a canvas bag onto the floor and snapped it open like he wanted to frighten the mystery into submission. From the Serpentine, he said. Recovered early this evening. And before you ask, yes, they're hers. He dumped the contents one by one onto the rug. A white wedding gown, sodden and stained. Satin shoes, veil and wreath limp and mottled from lake water. A bundle of bridal abandonment. Atop it all, a gold wedding ring glinting faintly in the firelight. Parkkeeper spotted them floating near the edge, Lestrade said, triumphant. Couldn't get the body, but the message is loud enough. Holmes raised a brow. You believe Lady St. Simon took her life? What else? Lestrade snapped. Disturbed bride, seen at the wedding, jealous ex, emotional spiral. Emotional spiral into a shallow pond? Holmes asked flatly. Lestrade growled, reached inside the gown's inner pocket and produced a card case from it, a note. Here's proof, he said, tossing it onto the table. Initialed, decisive. Holmes picked it up, studied both sides. The pencil-written message read, You will see me when all is ready. Come at once. FHM. Floor Miller's handwriting? I asked. Likely, Lestrade replied. Initials fit. Timing fits. And this shows premeditation. She lured Haiti out. Probably had accomplices. Jealous rage. Holmes turned the card over again, tapping the corner with a finger. Rooms, 8 shillings. Breakfast, 2 shillings. 6 days. Cocktail, 1 shilling. Glass of sherry, 8D. Lestrade huffed. So? That's the back of the note. Hotel receipt, doesn't matter. Holmes gave me a look. That's the name of the hotel, he said softly. Not Flora's handwriting. Not Flora's pocket. These prices belong to someone else. You mean? I started. I mean, Holmes said, rising from his chair. The person Haiti went to wasn't jealous. Lestrade looked up confused. You're saying... I'm saying I already solved it, Holmes replied. This note merely confirms what clean deduction told me hours ago. Lestrade looked like a man holding a map upside down, certain he'd arrived, baffled by the landscape. Holmes didn't gloat. He didn't need to. He simply laid the truth like a coat over a shivering guest. 9 o'clock came like a held breath. Holmes placed the glass in position. The fire crackled gently. The rain had finally stopped. The doorbell rang, and 2 figures stepped in from the chill. Haiti Doran, wrapped in charcoal gray, eyes bright but cautious. And beside her, Frances Hay Moulton, wiry, weathered, carrying more gravity than posture. Holmes nodded to them, wordless. The table, laid for 5, already felt like a stage. Haiti glanced at me as she entered. Not as a doctor, as a witness. Then the second ring. Lord St. Simon stepped through, his coat pristine, his mouth set. One hand rested against his chest, fingers curled tight, as if holding on to something that refused to stay dignified. Holmes motioned toward the chairs. No announcement, no preamble. Haiti stood first. "I'm sorry. I should have told you before the ceremony. I thought I had time." "You had years," Robert said. "Time wasn't the issue." "We married in '84, Frank said quietly. "McQuire's camp, mining country. We kept it secret. Her father wanted more than gold. He wanted bloodlines." "I thought Frank was dead," Haiti said. "The papers reported him among the fallen. Apache raid. I collapsed when I read it. I grieved for months. I thought he was gone forever." "I escaped," Frank continued. "Traveled, healed, came back to San Fran. Found out you'd come here." Haiti turned to St. Simon. "I didn't know what to do. I saw him at the altar. I thought I was dreaming. Then I realized I wasn't, and everything changed." The fire dimmed slightly. Nobody moved to fix it. The tension in the room didn't need help. Holmes watched silently, almost reverently, as if truth itself had become the client. "I dropped the bouquet to get his note," Haiti said. "Told Alice to prepare my things. Left as soon as I could. No anger, no plan, just truth catching up." St. Simon sat rigid, eyes locked ahead. "You should have spoken to me," he said. "Yes," Haiti whispered. "I should have." There was silence. Then Holmes lifted his glass. "No villains tonight, just corrections." And for once, Holmes didn't seem victorious. He seemed relieved. The aristocracy often presents itself with elegance, with rules, with expectations too brittle to bend. But the truth is rarely so ornate. And in this case, it was love, not heritage, that shaped the ending. I admired Holmes that day, not for his deductions, but for his restraint, for seeing the heart beneath the scandal and letting dignity guide his silence. In another world, this might have made headlines. Instead, it faded quietly. Sometimes the best endings are the ones left untold. Thank you for listening to this tale of titles, truths, and quiet revelations. If it resonated with you, show your support with a like or a comment. I read them all, and they help guide the next mystery forward. For more stories told in a voice you won't find anywhere else, subscribe and stay tuned. There's always another case just beyond the fog. And to my patrons, thank you. You keep this library breathing, this voice speaking, and these mysteries unfolding. If you'd like to see your name woven into future chapters, join me on Patreon and step into the story. Until then, stay observant, stay curious.